Hey guys, we're going to talk about breathing today. We're going to talk about a Nobel Prize. We're going to talk about how to induce psychedelic superpowers through a free 30-minute SOMA meditation and more. Stay tuned. Here we go. First of all, I want to take you down a little rabbit hole. I'm following a SOMA Breath meditation. I'm going to show you what it kind of looks like on the inside. Whenever you sign up, I'm a member to the 21-day awakening challenge. You have some things that they put in here. You also have some stuff down here, which is pretty cool. It's not very expensive, actually, and I don't get paid to say this. I'm just telling you what my journey. You go through here. Here's some medical stuff you need to be aware of, and then there's different courses, and I've completed all of this. I just haven't marked it as complete. And there's all kinds of training, all kinds of meditations. One of my favorite ones is right here called Awakening, and you have all different types of meditations in here that will send you for a flip. And when I say flip, we're going to be talking about this, and all of this is going to be in the show notes below. How does Ryan do it to create profound physical sensations and third eye visuals similar to that of psychedelic plant medicine? I am not joking. Here we go. Let's start at the very beginning, though. Who is a guy named Wim Hof? Chuck Norris? Never heard of her. Wim Hof is a great guy. He has climbed like mountains barefoot in shorts. He dunks himself in ice cold water, does crazy stuff. He's been proven in medical labs and hospitals, and he's been tested. All kinds of stuff. Even 3 guys won a Nobel Prize from the stuff that Wim talks about. Let's look at that. Now, 3 guys won a Nobel Prize for a specific oxygen level research thing they did that could treat things like anemia and cancer. That's what it says in the video. You can look it up. I'll put this video link in the show notes so that you can watch this video. It's amazing. There's another video you can watch that will be in the show notes below. It's this one, and actually Wim Hof goes into a hospital setting. Let me fast forward it here a little bit. So he's sitting here in a hospital under controlled settings. They inject a toxin into his system that it like makes everybody sick. It's for experimentation purposes. They injected it into him. He did his breathing. He did not get sick, and neither did anybody that came there with him that was doing the method. This has been scientifically proven. Here's pictures of him and his team climbing mountains in, what, underwear maybe? I don't know. They do it all the time. It's crazy stuff. But instead of just telling you about him, I'm going to read about him. So let's go over to the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health, and read an article. This will tell you about Wim Hof and what he's about and what he does. And after we get done with this, I'm going to go into how this correlates with the psychedelic breathing of SOMA. Wim Hof, alias the Iceman, is a very passionate person. Who wrote this? This guy right here. Walter Van Marken. Okay, this guy wrote it. So, Wim Hof, alias the Iceman, is a very passionate person. I first met him when he came to our laboratory for the measurement of brown fat. He immediately started to talk about his achievements of withstanding extreme cold, about how good this is for our health and mentality, but also that his skill is nothing special. Most people can do it. He loves to share his ideas and embrace scientific research. I must say that my students and I really like to work with him, and we got hooked on his enthusiasm. After the first measurement day, we had a dinner with Wim. That evening, he played the guitar, and we had some fun. The next morning after breakfast, I practiced breathing techniques with Wim. And Wim convinced me to take cold showers. Since then, for several years now, I do take a cold shower every day. Did I become healthier? I don't really know. I was already quite healthy. What I liked was that I overcame my fear and resistance for cold. After some time, you just take the cold as it is. Have the shower in your routine just as a toothbrushing. I noted changes in my body. No strong adverse shock feelings anymore. As soon as I switch from warm to cold water, I just stay relaxed showering. Is that healthy? The Dutchman, Wim Hof, is famous for being able to withstand extreme cold. As a young man, he already felt attracted to the cold until he could not resist it anymore, and took a winter dive in the pond of Vondelpark in Amsterdam. From then on, he got addicted. Cold is his warm friend. He holds several world records for staying in a tub filled with ice cubes up to his neck for almost 2 hours. Moreover, he ran a half marathon barefoot in the snow and swam under the polar ice from ice hole to ice hole. He claims that a combination of cold exposure, meditation, breathing techniques can strengthen your inner nature and prevent disease. Now, before we go any further, this part right here has been proven, and 3 guys won a Nobel Prize for it. And you can just go Google, 2019 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, and I just typed in this guy's name, William Kaelin, from the video here, and you can see that's what happened. More specifically, though, through his method, you should be able to make conscious contact with your autonomous, I swear I can't read. More specifically, through his method, you should be able to make conscious contact with your autonomous nervous system and your immune system. All over the world, he organizes workshops and travels to extreme environments. The core activities of his workshops are breathing techniques, meditation, and cold exposure. Often, physical exercise is included as well. Who is this man? How can he withstand radical cold? What is known about his claims? What are the facts? What is fiction? And are his claims worth to be studied? In this editorial, we will not provide a complete scientific picture of the scientific ins and outs of cold, meditation, and hyperventilation. Instead, I will explore the potential of the claims with a slight overexposure of thermophysiological aspects. Oh, and by the way, if you want to read about the scientific evidence, they have a place on their website. Let me find it. Here it is, wimhofmethod.com/science. And you can scroll down here and you can watch some videos about, here he is in a research lab, scientific studies, changing textbooks, brain over body study. That's an ICE study at the National Institutes of Health. Here it is, the free ebook. Of course, you got to give them your email, whatever, but it's free. I read it earlier. It's really interesting. And then you can scroll down and you can read about all kinds of research going on throughout the years. You can read that on your own. There you go. It's cool stuff. Okay, so where were we at? Because of my interest in cold exposure, more specifically in non-shivering thermogenesis and brown fat activation, I asked Wim Hof to join our experiments. We expected him to have an overload of brown adipose tissue. Earlier, other Dutch scientists from Radboud University, that's when you saw him in the hospital earlier, from Radboud University, studied Wim and reported that he maintained his core body temperature and increased energy expenditure up to 100% of his resting metabolic rate without shivering while surrounded with ice cubes. Let me read that again. He increased energy expenditure up to 100%, so 100% more energy expenditure of his resting metabolic rate without shivering while surrounded with ice cubes. The main function of brown, I don't even know how to say this, adipose tissue, is to convert chemical energy into heat, so-called non-shivering thermogenesis. It can be made visible during cold exposure with a glucose tracer using a positron emission tomography, computed tomography, something in Figure 1. Let's see what Figure 1 looks like. Okay. The Iceman Wim Hof released after the CAT scan, or the CT scan for the measurement of brown adipose tissue activity. Most young adults do have substantial amounts of brown adipose tissue. Am I even saying that correctly? Adipose? Let me see if I am. Apparently I am. Okay, so let's close that out. Most young adults do have substantial amounts of brown adipose tissue, while it is significantly reduced in the elderly and overweight people. To test Wim, we used an individualized cooling protocol developed to measure the maximal non-shivering thermogenesis. Under these conditions, brown adipose tissue activity was measured. We observed a rise of 40% of his resting metabolic rate, which is the highest value we measured thus far in a group of young adults. We normally observe non-shivering thermogenesis levels up to a maximum of 30%. However, after analyzing the PET or CT scans, the amount of brown adipose tissue was not very high compared with young adults, although it was high compared within his age group. So, okay, it was high compared to his age group because he is pretty old. It's like, I don't know how old he is, but he's older than me. I lost my spot here. Interestingly, the amount of brown fat measured was not enough to explain the high levels of non-shivering thermogenesis observed. So he didn't have enough brown fat to explain the high levels of him staying warm without shivering. During the measurements, we noted that as soon as the cooling protocol started, Wim changed his breathing. As soon as it started, he changed his breathing from just normal breathing. And I'm going to demonstrate this here in just a little bit from a different perspective. But from just normal breathing, he started to inhale deeply and kept his breath relatively long before exhaling. In fact, he was practicing his meditation technique, which is linked to Tumo meditation. So you can look up Tumo meditation. Tumo meditation involves a vigorous respiratory muscle activity. We decided to have a closer look at the PET, CT scans, and indeed found increased metabolic activity, uptake of FDG, of the long respiratory muscle that contributed to explaining the high non-shivering thermogenesis, at least to some extent. The conclusion must be nothing miraculous occurred. Although a non-shivering thermogenesis of 40% is considered as high, it is not that extreme. I think Wim Hof withstands the cold in the ice cubes through a combination of several factors: an increased heat production, non-shivering thermogenesis, brown fat activation, contraction respiratory muscles, efficiently increasing body tissue insulation, thereby reducing heat loss and conserving the body core heat content. And finally, possibly not unimportantly, he used his well-trained mental ability to endure the cold, change of mindset as he calls it. As soon as he steps out of the ice, he starts shivering just as everybody else, due to the redistribution of the cooled blood from his limbs to the body core, also known as the afterdrop effect. And you're going to see this in one of the videos that we just mentioned earlier. After they take him out of the ice, he gets cold. That's okay. So is that it? Wim is just slightly more adapted and resilient to extreme cold, and above all that, he makes people enthusiastic about his method. He makes them feel good and do more than what they thought they were capable of. So, should we forget about the health claims? I don't think so. In 2012, researchers from the Radboud University of some town here, the Netherlands, performed a study on the Wim Hof Method, focusing on the immune response. In short, they compared a group of volunteers who were trained by Wim Hof and a control group. The training consisted of 10 days of meditation, breathing techniques, cyclic hyperventilation followed by breath retention, and we're going to get into this in a few minutes, and exposure to cold, immersions to ice and cold water. Just as a I don't do the cold water thing. I am only about the cyclic hyperventilation followed by breath retention portion of it. Just a disclaimer there. The investigators studied the effect of the intervention on the autonomic nervous system and the innate immune response. The outcome parameters consisted of, among other things, plasma epinephrine as a measure of the sympathetic nervous system, and experimental endotoxemia. The latter is an experimental approach to study the effects of an acute, transient immune activation. Interestingly, they observed profound differences between the two groups. The trained group had significantly increased epinephrine levels, increased levels of anti-inflammatory cytokine, decreased levels of pro-inflammatory mediators, and less pronounced fever. Also, flu-like symptoms were lower in the trained group compared with the untrained group. And basically what this says is they injected them with a poison. The trained group didn't get sick, and the untrained group did. The setup of the research, and watch that video that we mentioned earlier. The setup of the research, however, did not allow discrimination between the acute and the acquired response, because during the experiment itself, the volunteers from the intervention group were allowed to hyperventilate, and the control group was not. So this is what I am interested in. It allowed for, let's see, because the experiment itself, the volunteers from the intervention group were allowed to hyperventilate, and the control group was not allowed to hyperventilate. Therefore, the investigators concluded that the hyperventilation can temporarily activate the sympathetic nervous system and suppress the innate immune response. The long-term training effects were not addressed. Therefore, it still needs to be sorted out if the training itself, hyperventilation, cold, and or meditation caused the observed effects. I think it would be interesting to study the different techniques, hyperventilation, meditation, and cold exposure, separately, and we're going to talk about these two in a minute, separately first, and then the combined effects. Hyperventilation has earlier been shown to affect our sympathetic nervous system, as increased in norepinephrine have been linked to both the hyperventilation and hypoxia due to breath retention. The meditation Wim Hof practices is mentioned above, linked to Tumo meditation and pranayama, yogic breathing. Tumo meditators are believed to be able to dry wet sheets that are wrapped around their naked bodies while they are practicing the meditation in the freezing cold Himalayas. Now, I don't know about this. I haven't researched it. I haven't done anything, so I have no idea. This meditation technique is not so much characterized by relaxation, but involves both somatic and neurocognitive components. The somatic components involved special breathing techniques, as well as the isometric exercises that may cause a rise in heat production. As we were able to show for the respiratory muscles, see above. I don't know, whatever. The other component involves meditative visualization, revealing the intense sensation of bodily heat in the spine, which are reported to aid in sustaining temperatures increases for longer periods. Sustaining temperature increases for longer periods. There we go. Finally, cold may exert health effects. First of all, cold may increase energy expenditure by shivering, but also by non-shivering thermogenesis, as mentioned above. In the recent past, quite a few studies from several laboratories showed that humans are able to increase their non-shivering thermogenesis capacity due to cold acclimation. So if you live in a cold climate, you're not going to get cold as often. And I experienced that moving from Tennessee to California. It was cold in Tennessee in the wintertime, and I didn't get cold. Now, when it gets, like, I don't know, 50 degrees here, I'm cold. So you have to acclimate you to your climate. This mirrors numerous studies in rodents. However, the effects in humans are of a smaller magnitude compared with these animals. The increase in non-shivering thermogenesis goes hand in hand with increase in brown fat presence and activity. Brown fat is thought to be healthy, as animal studies show positive effects on obesity and on glucose and lipid metabolism. In humans, white adipose tissue mass was reduced after 6 weeks of mild cold exposure with a concomitant rise, with some type of rise in active brown adipose tissue. Brown fat is also believed to play a role in the etiology of diabetes. Activated brown fat adipose tissue can take up large quantities of glucose and lipids in rodents and in humans. Its activity has been negatively associated with diabetic status. In search for the effect of cold acclimation in patients with type 2 diabetes, we were happily surprised to find out that insulin sensitivity was markedly increased after only 10 days of mild cold acclimation. Probably skeletal muscle is the main tissue involved in the increased glucose handling. These studies show that mild cold can have profound effects on our health, at least with respect to the metabolic syndrome. Whether more extreme cold, as Wim Hof practices, may have comparable effects still needs to be investigated. Extreme cold air, 4 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes a day, does increase the capacity of non-shivering thermogenesis. Studies showing the often circulated effects of cold showers or winter swimming on health parameters are, however, very scarce. As far as I know, only one study in cold water swimmers suggests that regular cold exposure may stimulate insulin sensitivity. Apart from the metabolic effects, Wim Hof's method may increase vasomotion, and I don't even know what that word means. Let's look it up. Vasomotion. What does this word mean? It's the spontaneous oscillation in the tone of blood vessel walls, independent of heartbeat, innervation, or respiration. So maybe the blood vessels move up and down no matter if the heart's beating strong or not. I don't know. As apart from the metabolic effects, Wim Hof's method may increase vasomotion, thereby training our blood vessels and cardiovascular system. That's odd, because whenever I'm doing my my meditation with this type of breathing, or with the SOMA breathing, I can feel my heartbeat in my belly a lot more than just normal sitting. That's crazy. Okay, it is interesting to note that many of the effects of the cold on our metabolic health, energy, glucose, and lipid metabolism, and cardiovascular system shows parallels with the effects of exercise training. However, as indicated above with the Radboud University study, it remains unknown whether cold exposure on its own positively affects our immune system. Finally, I think mental health may be influenced by the Wim Hof method, not only by the meditation. Many of Wim Hof's pupils become extremely enthusiastic, experiencing their bodily feelings during almost bioenergetic hyperventilation sessions that they never experienced before. And this part is totally freaking true. They are also pushing boundaries and feeling relaxed after extreme body challenges. There is, however, a string attached to the Wim Hof method that is the risk that people may think the method is scientifically valid. Wim is a wholehearted speaker, but his scientific vocabulary is, whatever this word, probably about the same as my scientific vocabulary, which is not very good. Let's look it up. Who knows? I don't know. With conviction, he mixes in nonsensical way scientific terms as irrefutable evidence. Many less scientifically literate people believe what he says, and several seriously diseased people have used his method as the final straw. And I see absolutely no problem with this. If you have a serious disease and you're about to die and you're wanting to try anything, why not? Anyhow, stories of believers circulate on the internet, in popular magazines, and are broadcasted as well. The scientific investigations are often presented with a biased view. Of course, every single scientific investigation in the history of the world is presented with a biased view. I don't care who you are. If you're a scientist, you have a bias one way or another. But you just have to follow because I have a bias toward the Wim Hof method. And even though that I'm reading this part right here that says, it may not be, you know what? We're following the evidence. watch those videos. When practicing the Wim Hof Method with a good dose of common sense, for instance, not hyperventilating before submerging in water, and without excessive expectations, it doesn't hurt to try. Although the effects on our health await to be proven, people may feel healthier. One day I'm going to jump into my story on how all of this breathing and meditation and everything has worked on me, but I'm just going to bring it with facts. All in all, I think it is worthwhile to sort out whether and which of the training aspects of Wim's method affects our immune system and metabolism. And with respect to extreme challenges, is Wim special, or are we all, as himself proclaims, ice men or women? Now, since we learned a little bit about Wim Hof and everything, what's this got to do with SOMA Breath? Well, I don't know where I heard it or who I heard it from, but Niraj and Wim are good pals. Niraj learned under Wim, and I'm not looking it up. You can look it up somewhere. So Wim Hof apparently taught Niraj, the guy from SOMA Breath, which we're getting ready to look at. And SOMA Breath is what I partake in every single day. I do it in the morning before I get up. At lunchtime I do a quick one, and at nighttime before I go to bed. Some profound results have happened. But let's not even get into the paid portion of it. Let's look at something free. Before I talk about this, here are the instructions. This style has not been approved by Niraj or SOMA or Wim or anybody. This is simply my own way of doing it, and it produces phenomenal results for myself. I'm not a medical doctor, as you can probably tell already. I'm just a guy on the internet. If you do this, you do it at your own risk. Intermittent hypoxic training or breath holding to create brief intermittent hypoxia should not be practiced in any case of the following: severe or critical disease or infections, COPD 2 or 3, organ failure or late-stage terminal illness, pregnancy, cancer, if you have epilepsy, a pacemaker, or irregular heartbeat. What if you're a person with any of these symptoms? Go to your doctor, get, whatever you want to do. You're your own person, Don't blame anybody for anything. Don't practice this in water or while driving or operating any kind of machinery, of course. And stay away from any breath retentions unless you're supervised by your health professional. It's a shame we got to do this, but people try to sue everybody all the time. So, just make sure that whatever it is that you do, that's your own jig. I'm just going to tell you what I do. So, what do I do to create profound physical sensations and third-eye visuals similar to that of a psychedelic plant medicine? Well, I will tell you this. When we do this, let me just go down the steps here. First of all, go to this, where's it at? Let me find it. Go to this video right here. It's going to be listed in the show notes down below. Go there. It looks like this right here. Guided Meditation for Positive Energy and Abundance, SOMA Breath. And whenever you get here, the very first portion of it, I think it says Limitless or something on the picture on the front. I'm not sure what it says, but go there. Listen to it, or I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you what I do. I listened to the meditation, followed along for a few times before I really got into it. It was kind of weird at first, but after about 3 times I just fell into it and started doing my own thing. But through things that I have learned through Quantum Touch and through Joe Dispenza, I added my own little twist to it, and it helps me, a lot. For instance, there is an illness that I'm battling, and I cannot eat all the time. I'm very nauseous. Anyhow, I can lay down, I can do this meditation for literally like 11 minutes. I can get up and I can eat dinner. Now, how's that possible? It's not in my head, don't tell me that. It's a physiological change in my body that happens. I don't know how it's going to affect everybody else, but that's what it's how it affects me. So I listened to the meditation a few times. I had my wife, I had he was my 8-year-old kid at the time try it. They're both on board. And then after I listened to it for a few times, I started doing this. I'm going to demonstrate the breath. First of all, he's going to say in the meditation, in 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I might be doing that a little bit too fast. It's more like in 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, when I'm breathing in, it's not just breathing in normal. No, it's really, I mean, digging deep, trying to breathe as much as I possibly can to the count of 4 and then to the count of 8, such as this. And in doing so, and actually my hands just got sweaty just doing that for just, what, 10 seconds there. And while I do this, I'm imagining inhaling from the bottom of my feet and bringing that energy all the way to the top of my head on my inhale. And on my exhale, I imagine and I actually feel the energy swirling around my arms and everything. It's coming down my head, through my arms, and out my hands. And if you do it it usually takes me about, I don't know, a minute or two before I start feeling it. And part of it is the hypoxic whatever, I don't know what you call it, look it up. But whatever it is, it works. So, I actually have real physical sensations. It's not anything woo-woo or made up in my head. And what I'm getting ready to tell you here in a minute, it just blows my mind. But I actually feel the energy. So, at the 1404 mark in the video, at 1404, right here, you've already finished breathing by this point for the first round. And he's going to tell you to inhale and then exhale. However, what I do, I take a deep breath as much as I can hold. I mean, as much as I can possibly hold. And whenever I've got that, I try to suck in a little bit more. And then I hold it, and I focus my attention at the very tippy top of my head, and I squeeze my perineum muscles. That's the muscles that you squeeze when you're trying to hold your pee, or sometimes when you ejaculate. You squeeze that perineum muscle. I pull my stomach up and back, is trying to touch my stomach to my spine. And I hold my breath there for a good 5 to 10 seconds. And when you do this, if you do it like me, what I feel some type of energy. It's not it's not body vibrations. Your body does not vibrate, but you feel the vibrations without your body vibrating, going through your entire body, in your head. Sometimes you will see, or sometimes I see, actual lights, a big round white light. Sometimes it's a light green light. My head feels like it's floating. It's an actual psychedelic experience. It only lasts for just a few seconds, but you can feel your body healing, or I can. It's so profound that I do it 3 times a day now, and it's crazy how it happens, but it's true, and it's not even the paid stuff. This is his free thing. Just go do the free thing. Just try it. So again, at the count of 1404, when he says inhale deeply and then exhale, I hold it for like 5 to 10 seconds, and then I exhale. And when I blow out all my air, then I continue with the meditation normally. Now, whether or not you get the effects that I talked about here, who knows? but you will find your groove and your rhythm on, and if you do it for like 10 days in a row, I am pretty darn sure you're going to be pleasantly surprised, because I don't know why it happens. Niraj has put together this, just go on to SOMA Breath here and just look at some of the videos that he's got. Some of them are really great. Some of them, like this one right here, this is just a meditation, music, breath work. You got some shamanic drumming. This is my favorite one by far. I think that's, no, that's not it. Become Limitless. Here it is. This is one that I just showed you. This is my favorite one by far. It's like his best work, I think. Just, gosh, go try it. Everything's been scientifically, maybe not proven, but it is. It's on the. They're doing research about this breathing, whether it's with SOMA Breath, whether it's with Wim Hof, whether it's with yoga. There's Kundalini yoga. And also, one other thing. If I was to ask someone to try it, when you finish, if it's at nighttime, you're going to fall asleep. I mean, like that afterwards. It's crazy. So, there's my review. Let me think of a bad point about this whole thing. Okay, here's a bad point. Whether it's me, whether it's Niraj, whether it's Wim, we all, because we believe in it so much, and because we have experienced something that we cannot explain. That's why people's doing some research. We believe in it so much that sometimes we'll be like, oh, this is scientifically proven, when it's actually maybe scientifically tested, but not proven. Where, you know, to be proven, it's got to be accepted by the scientific community, and it just hasn't been accepted yet for some freaking god-awful reason. Who knows? But it works, and it is repeatable. If something is repeatable, then that makes it science, correct? So, go look at everything that we've talked about today, and let me know your thoughts, good or bad, in the little comment section below if you want to. I don't care. Now, if you're going to be a butt dart, I'm just not going to talk to you. But if you want to, if you're skeptical, I will talk to you. Just be nice. All right. Love you regardless. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.